Well, hi folks. Sorry for the issues. We've had a bunch of technical issues here at Mission Control at Dome at Home, but we now have the feed for the Starship Flight 4 launch. Launch is scheduled in about 16 minutes, 16 minutes and 10 seconds, and we're at least able to carry the NASA spaceflight.com's feed. Um, the rest of the Dome at Home equipment is non-functioning right now, but I've managed to cobble this together. So if you're with us, great, thanks for joining us. And we will be carrying the feed here, and you can either watch here, or if you go to nasaspaceflight.com, that's not actually a NASA site, it's a private basically a fan site for space stuff. And it started off as just people that were interested in space, and it has turned into probably the best news coverage of the space program in the United States that exists. They have a series of live cameras all around the SpaceX facility. They have live cameras at the well, there you can see some of their facilities. They're set up there to watch the launch at Boca Chica in Texas. They've got facilities in Florida, and it's basically just a bunch of guys that like space and started doing this and turned it into what turns out to look. They've got even a little trailer facility there. It looks like just one of those cargo carrier kind of things. It's a nice office, but yeah, it's they've grown into basically a real news organization specialized in the space program, and also a bit of an intelligence service. They basically look at the various pictures that they can get from outside the fences. Excuse me, I had a little sneeze there. And then they also will basically try to.
So fingers crossed. All right. Well, we will be keeping an eye on things. And Jack, thank you for all of the work that you all did over there to get things ready for us. We were just talking to Dawson. It was all fogged in over at the hotel. But you've got some views there, so hopefully things work out. And we will let you get back to work because I know you've got a lot to do here as we enter the last 13 minutes of the countdown. And yell at those clouds. Maybe they'll go away.
Fair enough. Andrew, can you not? All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you later. So there you go. Jack is out in the field. And again, this is what it takes to get these things to you. You saw how DOS was all fogged in over there. And Jack's got some somewhat better views there. But our cameras over by the pad are super close. So you will see this rocket launch without fog in the way. The only fog, again, is rocket fog. So we are going to keep an eye on things as we enter the terminal phase of the count. So, Alex, I know what your heartbeat is. What do you think?
So, just to fade down, sorry, I was listening into some of the mission control stuff there. And so, the spaceflightnow.com is what we're going to be able to cover, the feed we're going to be able to have today. And I will be working hard to get the Dome at Home mission control reconfigured and back together. And I'll probably have to replace some gear to make everything work. But anyway, I will be watching this with you, and I will pop in when I can. But Spaceflight Now does a great job of carrying on the commentary and explaining everything that goes on. So we'll listen in with them for the next 12 minutes or so, and hopefully we will see this Starship take off on its fourth test flight. Each one has gone from, let's face it, pretty much a complete failure on the first one where everything blew up, to the second flight where everything still blew up but not till near the end, to the third one where they actually made it into space and made it through quite a few of their test objectives before everything blew up. As they say in the SpaceX promotion stuff, in the launch today, excitement guaranteed, because even if things blow up, that's pretty good TV. And we've now gotten past the point where I'm worried about explosions, being a safety concern, because really there's no, they've progressed far enough that Starship is now operating relatively safely in terms of, getting away from populated areas and not causing all sorts of problems in the nature preserve that's nearby and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to bring back our space flight, NASA spaceflight.com crew, and we're going to watch the launch.
So yeah, it seems, and of course the hope is that at this point, this time this will work as well as it did last time, and we get some amazing re-entry views again. And also some updates here. The ship main tanks are at this point holding at 85%. The header tanks are loading, is underway. Weather, range, and vehicle are still go, and boosters at 75. So everything basically progressing as normal.
All right. That
As
is good
normal.
to hear, especially as normal as can be, launching something like this. And that's it. I mean, this is still an experimental, in development spacecraft. So there's a lot that will be learned here the further they get. And each launch has been incrementally getting closer to full reusability, which is part of the mission here today. So we learned just a little while ago that not only is Starship missing tiles on purpose to see how the stainless steel underbelly there behaves in re-entry, it also has tiles that are thinner to see if they can get away with something less robust than what they have currently. So they're going to learn a lot on the way back down. And all of that, I'm assuming, was informed by the prior flight, where we saw some control issues and things breaking up on the way back down. But they did collect a lot of heating data on that flight, too. So that's the mission here really is not necessarily going to space, obviously, is the mission, but a big part of this is figuring out how to get things back down. So we'll be definitely keeping an eye on things. And we're going to get, if the last launch is any indication, Alex, we're going to get some great views of plasma building up on the spacecraft as it re-enters the atmosphere.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see all of those views. I'm kind of waiting to see what else we get on this flight. Yeah, we're essentially right now on those few final minutes of the count. I'm like looking at all the feeds and everything. You can see a very frosty ship there. Lots of venting from the tanks as they are very, very cold. Propellant load sequence is essentially in the final few minutes, the final few percentages of those tanks being filled. The OLM, the overall launch mount, is configured for liftoff with the opening of the clamps on the base of the rocket rotor. The rocket doesn't really, it's not clamped at engine ignition. It just lifts off as soon as the thrust of the Raptors is higher than the weight of the rocket. So that's why the 90 engines around T-3 seconds. It's staggered ignition in 3 banks of engines, and then at T0 they throttle up those engines, and once the thrust is higher than the weight, then the rocket starts moving. That's approximately 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds after that throttle up. So that is going to be the liftoff point for today's mission. But we still have another 7 minutes and 49 seconds to go until that, and a lot of excitement building up. Not just the propellant is building up inside of Starship tanks, but also the excitement everywhere. I'm trying to contain a little bit more my excitement, I guess, in my anxiousness. But there you can see regular venting from the venting, that we see there from the header tanks, from the main tanks as they keep being loaded. You kind of need to depress a little bit to be able to allow that liquid to be continued to be topped off and everything. So yeah, we are in a really great situation here with a countdown. So far so good. Like, I've been listening to the updates from SpaceX, and they're saying weather is green, range is green, everything is green. So far, smooth countdown. They had that little issue at the beginning, trying to ramp up and spool up the tank farm. That's why they had that small delay. But so far, so good. Ever since, very smooth. There you can see all of the people waiting to watch the launch.
Yeah.
So,
And it's a little foggy
yeah.
there, so it's going to be hard to see things necessarily right on the ground there. But it looks like,
Ooh, look at that.
It's a go here.
I know
Lots
that
of
face.
people out. So yeah, so it's a little foggy there, but they'll still get a show. They'll at least be able to feel that rocket when it lifts off. And it looks
As
like
they
the
say in
header tank.
Vandenberg, they'll hear a very beautiful launch.
Right. Yeah, the fog is part of the routine, and sometimes it burns off, and this time it didn't. So we'll see. But our cameras are close, super close, so close that the fog won't be an issue for catching this liftoff and confirmation that all 33 engines will be lighting up simultaneously there, or in the order in which they're supposed to light. So we'll be able to get a good view of that. So the header tank looks as though it is venting. We're at 90% fueled up for the ship and 88% for the booster. And you almost don't need a fuel gauge because you can just see that frost going up there. Adrian, what does the header tank do on Starship?
The header tanks are for the landing portion of the Starship flight, because the advantage of that is basically at the landing part you would have a very empty tank, right? And as we know, Starship does a very, very violent maneuver at the very end, where it goes from horizontally to vertically. Now imagine a bunch of liquids inside a tank while you do a 90-degree flip. You would basically have that propellant would be everywhere except where you need it. So what they do is basically they have a very compressed header tank where they can extract from, and that header tank is basically just there to help them during this landing and prevent sloshing. They have other sloshing prevention as well. For example, in the booster, we believe there's some sort of slosh baffle, which basically also prevents some sloshing at the bottom of the booster, as they are going for different maneuvers. So there's basically all kinds of prevention that they also have learned from Falcon 9, where they have implemented now into Starship and Super Heavy to prevent the sloshing of liquids inside of the tanks.
And I'm just thinking about the future crews that will be on this mission and the sloshing that they may experience going through that kind of maneuver. So that's what I think is so exciting about Starship, is that there are so many more milestones to cross here. Of course, we're not going to be grabbing the booster on the way back down, or Starship. It's all going into the ocean, but they're going to be making another step closer to being able to recover one or both of these components of Starship in future missions, and that's what today's mission is all about. Alex, we are just about at the 3-minute and 30-second mark. What are we hearing out there?
Well, so far so good. It looks like we are heading into the final few seconds of the propellant load. The propellant load sequence should finish on the ship at T-minus 3 minutes and 20 seconds, essentially 10 seconds from now. And 30 seconds later, that will be for the booster as well. Then, they're going to be ready in the rocket for flight. FTS arm, the bend down sequence, the QDs and everything. They're going to be ready in the whole launch pad systems as well for liftoff. And hopefully we're going to get that engine ignition at T-minus 3 seconds, followed with throttle up and liftoff at T+2 seconds. So, boy, I'm...
This is it.
I'm so nervous right now. We are under 3 minutes.
I am too. And
right now,
Adrian,
they have no plans to... Just a quick update as well. They have no plans right now to hold at the usual T-minus 40-second point that they have for a hold. But, there's always automatic systems that could prevent that and automatically hold at T-minus 40 seconds. So you never know. And yeah, we saw that tower event coming back. That is essentially confirmation that propellant load has wrapped up on the ship.
I'll tell you one thing, that camera view we see here is not going to, that camera's not going to survive long after.
No, that camera is very much like, what's the next level of danger? That's like
danger. Death cam.
Confirmation that indeed propellant load is complete on Starship. So, boy, 5,000 tons of propellant on board this rocket, about to lift off in less than 2 minutes.
And we are once again here, everybody. We are at below 120 seconds to a Starship potentially launching.
And we just got word that prop load is complete. Yeah, prop load is complete. I think it's happening. So we are about 1 minute and 40 seconds out. Adrian, when does the Starship's computers take over the launch count at this point?
which will be once again similar to Falcon 9 at 1 minute. And going forward from that, if we go down the countdown, we also have a few more minor steps that we will observe here. We will have the verifying go for launch at 30 seconds. Then we have the flame deflector, the giant flame deflector system at the bottom of the rocket, which will activate at 10 seconds. And then the Raptor ignition ignite at 3 seconds. That will be a staged ignition. And then at 0 seconds, they will throttle up the Raptors above 50%. And then basically achieve a thrust-to-weight ratio of over 1. And as soon as they achieve that, it's go. After that, we're going.
We're going.
Listen to how excited these guys are, hey? They are big, big fans of the SpaceX program. And we are at 35 seconds to go. So as far as we can tell, SpaceX doesn't actually share their countdown or any of that information. Oh, they have go for launch. There we go. Okay, listening to that. We're go for launch, 10 seconds away. So I'll bring up some audio here so we can hear SpaceX. They don't really talk much in public until things go.
And we got ignition.
There we go. And it's moving.
And lift off.
Right. Relaunch it, right? That's it.
Most powerful rockets ever to be built. Outclassing the Apollo rockets, and even the old Soviet N-1 moon rocket, which was technically more powerful but never got very high without blowing up. Ooh, that's a nice shot. Something on the tower, I think. There's already 2 engines out on the bottom of the rocket there. Oh, one just came back on. Or maybe it's just overexposed. I think there's a couple of engines out already, which is not unusual.
Successful
for SpaceX.
liftoff, gentlemen, but it looks like one engine is out, Adrian.
Yeah, it looks like they lost 1 Raptor engine so far. They are flying with 32 engines uphill so far, which is good. Like, there's some engine out capability on Super Heavy. They should be still fine.
Going through
Right,
max
so far-
Q.
Yeah, max Q.
Max Q is the region of highest dynamic pressure from the atmosphere, the most friction. So that's, that's where things are going to fall apart if they do. But
The engine that they lost is also on the outer ring of engines, so in theory that should
There
not
we go.
affect the return of booster 11.
so it looks like the flight is progressing pretty well here. The downside of SpaceX is that they don't provide, their live. Oh, there we go. They have provided the live feeds of the from the rocket there, which is great. Pretty cool. You can see the trail all the way down to the ground. They launched through a tiny little hole in the clouds, it looks like. So that's kind of cool. So on this test flight, Starship is supposed to go up into orbit and then re-enter at re-entry speeds. They've actually got a few tiles, those black hexagon shapes there are the heat shield tiles. They are planning to re-enter and test those out. That's the main objective of the mission. They've got a few tiles missing, and that's actually on purpose. They want to see how the stainless steel hull of the ship will handle things. Okay, here we have quite a bit of a pitch over. Let's see if that's intentional or not. Okay, so the booster is now stopped, and it's going to do its flip around, which is a crazy maneuver, quite honestly. A giant thing like that flipping around 180 degrees and then coming back to land. And it's not actually going to land on in a place that's recoverable, but they're going to try and land it on the ocean. And so they'll at least get to see the engines all relight, the guidance system work, and make sure that it sort of comes in for a proper landing. But then it's just going to land in the ocean. So that way there's no risk of, an explosion or any of that kind of stuff. Elon Musk has said that in their next flight, if that works, they might try to land on the land, but that might be premature. We'll kind of see what happens. But some nice views of the Earth there from the booster as it flips around. On the right, we have the view from Starship itself, the second stage. And you can see the big fin in the middle there. That's one of the guidance fins that they use for, controlling the flight back through the atmosphere. There was just a big puff of smoke there on the left. The booster is dropping off what's called the hot staging ring, which is basically the grid or the structure in between. Oh, that's pretty cool. We don't have this kind of image all the time. That's from the booster dropping off the hot staging ring. And that's the thing that allows the thrust of the second stage to start burning before the first stage turns off. That just makes it easier for all your hydraulics and fuel and stuff like that, because when the first stage is still burning, it sort of pushes all the fuel down to the bottom of the rocket just from the sort of the force of it moving. And that makes it way easier for the rocket engine on the second stage to work properly. So now we just saw the Starliner launch yesterday, and Starliner was interesting because they had great open mission control coverage. Boeing basically gave us access to all of their internal communications, all the mission control chatter and stuff like that. And they had some live images on the way up, but not of the crew on the inside. It was all basically simulation once it got off the ground, pardon me, because they just haven't hooked up the video camera to the transmission system yet. Whereas SpaceX is great with cameras, and they've got their own Starlink network to be able to broadcast video from anywhere, basically. But they don't give us any of their internal mission control chatter, because that's where we would hear something like a problem happening or things like that. So this makes it a little bit different, but this is pretty darn impressive to see these pictures, I gotta say. And I mean, Starship, for reference, is a little bit taller than the Apollo moon rocket, and the Apollo moon rocket from the 60s and 70s is about as tall as the Richardson Building downtown here in Winnipeg at Portage in Maine, one of the most famous intersections in Canada. And so that's pretty big. Okay, so this is a shot from the booster, I believe, as it's starting to come back down to Earth. And so they're going to try and land this thing in the ocean. Oh, there's a little loose bolt flying up there. I hope that wasn't important. That is something that I've noticed a lot of all the commercial crew stuff, is that there is a lot of loose stuff floating around once you get into space. The space shuttle and some of the NASA programs, and even Soyuz, there isn't a lot of loose material left. They clean things up really well. Okay, so here on the left, the booster has started its burn to slow down, to come back through the atmosphere and land. On the right, Starship is still progressing, and it's coming close to that important speed on the bottom right. 17,500 kilometers an hour is orbital speed. But now we cut away to the booster, because this is the cool part. It's coming down through the clouds, and hopefully it will land safely on the water and then just fall over into the water. And it looks to be, it's not quite vertical, but the rocket engine is leveling it out. Wow, they successfully landed the booster on the water, and now it's just going to tip over. The super heavy booster just had a 98% perfect flight. They had one engine out of the 33 engines. But to be honest, that's not a big deal, because you can just burn the other engines a little bit longer. There's some redundancy built in there. That was a perfect, almost perfect flight for the booster. Starship is in space, in orbit. Sorry, and the speed I was referring to, it's actually I mixed up miles and kilometers there. 25,300 kilometers an hour is the orbital speed, and they just topped that. So Starship is in space and has so far made a brilliant flight as well. Of course, we can't hear anything going on internally, but at 8 minutes and 40 seconds into the flight, this looks like a very good progress for SpaceX in terms of its launch of the Starship and Super Heavy booster. So at this point, the spacecraft's going to fly halfway around the world, and it's going to re-enter in the Indian Ocean. I'll leave the stream live here while I just get the kids back to school, and then I'll be back with you as we go along. I'll be listening into the spaceflight, NASAspaceflight.com feed as I go, but you'll have to let me know if anything cool happens. I'll be gone for about 15 minutes. But we're going to leave this. Whoa, that was. I think the telemetry of the Starship may have some issues because it just did a 180-degree flip on the little diagram there, but the booster didn't look like it is moving. So they're venting out some fuel here. They're getting ready to orient themselves. It looks like they are having some control issues with Starship. That's a little bit of yaw, left-right motion that we probably weren't expecting to see. Although maybe this is them reorienting for deorbit. I'll bring back our friends at NASAspaceflight.com and maybe they can talk us through.
That's also the thing with the booster landing burn, that it lost one engine on the landing burn. It had 12 engines actually instead of 13, and still it made it. Oh, are those tracking views of the chip from the ground?
That's
after
sick.
that, the booster was able to do its boost back burn. Oh, this looks like we're actually getting some views from the ground still, potentially from Florida, of the ship as it's up there.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a view from some of our tracking cameras on the ground in Florida. But the ship, we just heard successful orbital insertion, so it's right where it needs to be and is now going to continue on its way to coast until it comes to reentry. But I mean, the booster, successful boost back burn, jettison the hot stage, and then a landing burn. It looked like we saw 12 of the 13 engines light up, and then that first ever soft splashdown in the water. So a whole lot still to come. Ship now on its way to its primary objective of entry. That's going to be coming up in just under 40 minutes from now. So a lot still to come, but wow, what a 9 minutes to start this mission off.
And
So SpaceX sounding pretty positive there. Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
yeah, absolutely. And we have a treat for you, everybody, because we like
More
to
treats?
celebrate special milestone with special clubs. You know, our clubs are here, and this time we go swimming because it's summer, it's hot. So with the splashdown of the booster successfully in the water, we have some released merch that just popped up. I'm waiting for it to pop up here. Okay. But we have. Yep, I'm waiting for it.
You know what's also coming? The ship is coming down, right? Because it's already committed to that entry.
Oh yeah.
I cannot wait for those views of re-entry.
We are. It looks good so far. Well, talking about commentator
But,
things.
you know, we were
That's
talking
normal.
about the...
That's normal. Don't worry
Yes.
about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's okay. Sometimes they lose a bit of signal here and there. It's also using Starlink, right? So it's very experimental. I guess today was like a testament of the engine out capability of a Starship. We saw Flight 1 engines being lost left, right, and center, and that was bad. Today is an example of, okay, they lost one engine on the way up, they lost one engine on the landing burn, and still it did work, right? That's the whole point. Falcon 9. So the thing with Falcon 9 is it could lose an engine on the way up, and it will still do the work on the way up, but not on the landing. Whereas Super Heavy can actually do both, and
Here we go.
it did the landing.
go.
So here is the merge celebrating that landing. Go ahead.
The Super Heavy
Adrian.
Swim Club. If you want to join that swim club, it's now available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Thank you, production, for bringing that up. And we still have a very, very, very small amount of Flight 4 and Flight 1 patches still. So if you want to grab the last few ones of that while you get this, make sure that this is the way how you can support us and how we can do it. Again, this is just about to sell out. I'm basically probably removing this like after I say this. So thanks everybody for supporting us. I don't want to talk too long about the merge here, but I want to make sure that yeah, it's the way how.
Okay, everybody, we're just going to pause our coverage here because I think we can pretty much call that a successful Starship test flight. The booster did everything it was supposed to do. One engine or maybe two engines out on the way there, but a successful soft splashdown landing, that's unprecedented. For something this large returning to the Earth, that's pretty impressive. Starship itself is on its way around the world at 26,332 kilometers an hour, and it will be coming down for a landing, hopefully in the Indian Ocean, in a little bit more than half an hour. SpaceX is probably thrilled at this point. Spaceflightnow.com will be coming back with coverage. If you want to catch the rest of the coverage, you can vip over to their site and watch the rest. We're going to end our coverage here now due to some technical issues that I'm still battling here, but hopefully we'll be able to get things back online for our next Dome at Home special. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and yay, Starship. It's been a pretty good week for space flight. A new human spacecraft launched from the United States in Starliner just the other day, and now Starship on what is proving to be its most successful flight yet. All right, everyone, have a good day. I hope you had this good start to your day.